Lucky in the summer, early fall of 2020, and I was looking for the next thing I might do professionally and go to work every day, and something that would make a difference to the community. And John, being the community's hero, he was one of two people that I started my telephone conversations with, and I called John and said, you know, I so admire what you've done, selling your company, and what you've just seen here in this story. What do you know that's going on in Cleveland? Is this working? So, and he said, well, I'm flattered that you called. I don't know of anything going on, but then recounted in town generally, but said, we are at a very crucial point. So I said to John, well, that's very interesting. I then ended up talking more with John and school leaders, including this wonderful person, Eric, and said, this is something I might be interested in doing, but first, having been the consultant with McKinsey & Company for 30 years and generally a consultant by background, said we need to do a project. So we need to do an in-depth study, which we did for 3 or 4 months. Dick was on the team. His twin brother was on the team. My son was a full-time associate. I directed the work, and we came up with a quite comprehensive overall strategy. It looks like a consulting firm's study. There were no fees, as you might imagine, and recommended to the board a program that we thought could be the best in the country at helping these kids get from 8th grade on to their mid-20s. And what I'd like to do is just touch a bit on, using a few of these pictures, on the highlights of that, principally with a request for you, ladies and gentlemen, in business advisors, to help us by being part of this effort, which in beginning ways you already are. So I will not get into much detail, but just mention a few highlights and see if I can, John and I can get that message across. If what this program is, and this is the highest level statement of it, it's an ecosystem of support, connections, community collaboration. It's co-designed with alumni. So we have a group of alumni on the Alumni Council who has helped us. This will be hard for you to read, and why don't you put up all 4? If you were to read the report, you might get bored, or you might say it looks like a consultant's report. The key piece of this is that it has 4 separate strategies, one for each age cohort as they move through. There's a lot of different things you have to do to start the kids in 7th and 8th grade with the key events in their life. High school is a whole different ballgame with the kinds of needs and supports, mentorship and so forth kids need. So is post-secondary, both college and non-college tracks. And then finally, employment and what you need to do to support these kids in getting into or young men and women at this point, and getting into the workforce, helping them find jobs, build networks, and so forth. There are a whole host of individual pieces and parts of programs, and there are a couple of places, JC, if you'd, leave that one, no, go back on that one for a moment, we'll be talking even after this lunch. There are several of your members who have said, we'd be interested in talking about how we might do something after school for your 8th graders to start them on the path of becoming entrepreneurs or with entrepreneurial thinking and having their own businesses. The research nationally says you start a kid in 3rd grade beginning to think about what they're going to do. You don't wait until they're in 10th grade and someone says, I want to be a doctor. You have no idea of what that's about. And by the way, on this one, I was saying to my table mates, this weekend I'm going to be out at Camp Beaumont, which is a Boy Scout camp that some of you may know of, with 55 8th graders, 16 staff from the Boy Scout organization who teach the merit badges, and we're going to teach 7 programs from graphic arts through healthcare, and then they're going to have a lot of fun while they're out there. I've been working on that for 6 months. So we have 4 or 5 individual programs. Imagine if some of you folks could get excited about spending some time in schools after school where they desperately need and sign up for adults who will be there and pay attention, let alone adults with the skills that you have. So I'm doing this big program. You, those of you who choose to do that, can touch an individual life and get a kid on the right track. You know about businesses, the difference you can make in Cleveland by each kid or each young person, what they can do to help break the cycle of poverty in this town. So one at a time, you win these kids. So we're hoping that this will be a place that you'll work with us. You're already starting to work with us at the other end. You have, I guess, Dick and Michaela, 1.5 clients, right? Has Breon reappeared?
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, it's an interesting, you'll see his picture in a bit, because that was the first client that you helped. And he ran into what these young people often do. He had a new baby somewhere in his complicated family situation, and it's diverted him from the second meeting. You guys said, we'll be your board of directors, go away and come back in 4 weeks with a number of things done in further business research. He didn't show up. So Dick calls me and says, where's Breon? So we go tracking down Breon and find he's run into some difficulties. You have another one, Manny, and we could see that your organization might, with the number of entrepreneurs that we have out there in that group, in the employment group, could have up to 20 clients from Breakthrough with the great starting education these kids have. JZ, if you could, just to give you some sense of the numbers, we have about 300 8th graders, same number of 7th graders. There'll be some 7th graders out at the camp. The high schools, and I'll say just a word or two more about that, have about 1,100. The college age are about 1,000, and then as time's gone on, we've got a couple of hundred rapidly growing. So we touch in the program about, in the alumni program, we're touching pretty close to 3,000, and that's going to grow to 4,000 pretty soon. So we got a lot of kids that you could help us really make a difference to, a kid at a time, that would really, really matter. To give you just a little bit of a flavor as to the moving parts on this, you won't be able to see this very well. We have 118 kids as we speak at St. Martin de Porres. We got a quarter of their total student body. These are our larger high schools. What we have to do from our team is to go out and establish a relationship with every one of these high schools, saying, St. Martin de Porres, you got 118 of our kids. Gary, you're involved, know St. Martin de Porres well. What we did was co-share a staff person with them, so we hired another person. We pay half, and they pay half, and we are in touch with every one of those kids, including the St. Martin de Porres kids who go on to college. So we now have a person on our staff as you might guess, and as you know in partnerships, you go out and say to a high school leadership team, we want to work with you, and some say, boy, would you please come? And one of their incentives, and most of them do, is our kids. Our kids are the highest performing kids from this demographic in Cleveland. I've had the entrepreneur from Davis A&M, Davis Aerospace and Maritime, where you can have glorious careers say, we wish that you provided 20% of our kids every single year. They're terrific. What can you do? So we have to have partnerships with 15 or 20 schools where we say to them, hey, you have this many breakthrough kids, you kind of got an obligation, we have a shared obligation to make them successful. Colleges is a little easier to see. You see CSU down there, by far the biggest, as you imagine. Tri-C, by the way, would be twice that, or 3 times. A whole different story as to what goes on in Tri-C. Yesterday, we, John and I and a couple others, had the pleasure of having Laura Bloomberg from CSU over for a tour and spent a couple of hours with us talking about working together. We have signed a 5-year affiliation agreement in which they have committed to give our kids, as part of the agreement, the best support they have in terms of success coaches and a program called Trio. Come to find out, before this effort, we got all these kids over there, no one knows who they are. Half of them weren't in Trio. Nobody was following them up. So this is the kind of thing we do kind of every day, is to establish relationships. We've got a good one going with Kent State and so forth. So that's all part of Beyond Breakthrough. To get you folks interested, just to see, these are terrific men and women. You can just see, this is one of the ladies on our council. She drives an 18-wheeler, and she is an exponent of, you don't need a college degree to be successful and make some fair amount of money. This kid is really off the charts as a musician. He's at Oberlin. We got our first young man into Harvard, a university school graduate. We got our first doctorate, a doctorate of pharmacy, out from Ohio Northern, and we got our first NFL player who's 6'5" and 250, but I was jealous. I'm a wishful basketball player with about a 14 vertical. His vertical is 34. And he weighs 255. I reset. And I'm putting this picture up. I met with all the 8th graders about this camp we're doing. So I met with each of the home rooms, put this up and say, this is what people who graduated from this place have become with help along the way. This is, you'll be happy to know, I won't go into the details, but only to say we have 8 cross-cutting processes. This bores conventional audiences, but you're business people. So we have a robust technology platform. It's really good. We have, I mentioned the partnerships. We have a comprehensive database. We have a special emergency fund for kids who need books and things of that sort. So we have implemented as part of the program all of those. And here's your client who has disappeared. This is Breon, who is, in fact, one of our stars. He's on our alumni council. We have a great alumni portal. It's got all kinds of stuff you could gather from the topic areas and the pictures of the subject areas. We change it all the time. We're very active in social media. And employers are represented there, our partner employers. I think we're now up to 20. There were 17 at the career fair. They all have their own site. So if you go into our part of the career site to see an employer, you first have to go to a little bit of coaching in our career site about resumes and how you approach the employers. You can then click into SwageLock or whatever it would be, and they have committed to us that any kid who comes in from Breakthrough, they will call personally and interview and give them a job opportunity. So this is part of where we put investments in technology, and it's taken a couple of years to build this damn thing and to recruit people into it. The people side of it, there was Eric, right over here. There then became Jim, and several other Bennetts added to that. We got a team of 10 people now. My startup company provided the capital to hire these people. So I guess I will say I'm the principal funder of this and have enabled this to happen, at least on the financial side. I work there full time. I do not get paid anything other than personal satisfaction. So we got 10 of us. It's a very diverse group. It covers and B.B. Potts, one of your guests, and come to meet with several of the leaders. A couple of I guess it's almost 2 months ago now, B.B., isn't it? Yeah, to explore the possibility of Gestalt disciplines and thinking. And John, through Dick, introduced us to Susan, and Susan to B.B. But this is our team. So we built a team. Our alumni council, which is the last page. Here is the 12-wheeler, and Musa is the chair. He's at Swagelok, and I won't go into the backgrounds of each of them, but this is a people business. And these are attractive, motivated folks, and I think you folks and business advisors of Cleveland can make a real contribution here to their lives and to their success.